What is up, YouTube? That's here today. I'm back playing more Pokemon VGC 2023 Regulation D rank battles, and today we're fixing another team submitted on Patreon. If you guys have teams you want to submit for me to take a look at and do my absolute best to fix in videos like this one, think about checking out the Patreon. There's a link to it in the description. Even the lowest tier, the $2 tier, gets access to all these team fixing resources, so think about checking it out and taking advantage of that so you guys can make the best team you can. Going to the question of the day, going to tournaments. Have you guys ever actually been to tournaments before? Have you been to Premier Challenges, mid-seasons? They're starting back up sooner than you think, and this team today, it's done by Braid. We can actually take a look at the team submission post right here. They're going to a tournament on September 16th, and so they want to get this team fixed as soon as possible. They're using a Sunroom team, which is, I would say, basically my specialty in this format, and I think the key to making a Sunroom team for a best of 3 open team sheet is giving yourself a wide variety of lead options and flowcharts to work with, so you can actually influence the game in games 1, 2, and 3 and not have to just go into the Armarouge every time. So you can see they have a bunch of different things they want to take a look at. They don't know if they want Flamethrower on Torkoal. They don't know if they want Protect on Lilligant. If we take a look at their team right here, very basic EVs, which we'll be expanding upon. I think like these sets are fine, but these are the sort of teams, I want to be honest right here, these sort of teams I would love to fight. I would love if my opponent had all these teams in like a best of 3 open team sheet setting. I would be using the fact that this is an open team sheet tournament to punish the fact that like you don't have Protect on your Indeedee. Your Hatterene doesn't have Protect either. You basically just lose to Imprison, right? So I could see what you have as defensive options and just absolutely punish them. So what we need to be doing in using this team is giving ourselves more ways to play outside of Trick Room and not be 100% reliant, to just force your opponent to respect a couple other options, as well as giving ourselves more defensive options to actually get the Trick Room up. We have Hatterene and Ursaluna, which I think are 2 win more Pokemon. If you get the Trick Room up and you have like a full 5 turns to use it, yeah, you probably win with like a Life Orb, Hat, and Ursaluna. But the hard part against good players in a tournament setting is actually getting up that Trick Room. So we're going to add a couple Mons that can help us get up that Trick Room in a couple different tricky ways, playing around things like Fake Out, playing around, you know, Sleeps, playing around Imprisons, playing around a bunch of like big, aggressive, you know, nuke options. But those are just my ideas here. Again, thank you guys so much for supporting these sort of team fixing videos. If you guys like these sort of videos, let me know in the comments. And without further ado, let's hop right into this team building guide. We're going to play a couple games live on ladder with this rental code, see how it performs as it was submitted, and then go into the team fixing. So wish me luck. Here we go. Alright, going up into this first game, I would say that the Slow King over there is pretty weird, but it makes sense on what this team's trying to do. You want to switch it in and get rid of those Intimidate boosts or Intimidate drops. Let's see, Garchomp, that's a bit of a weird looking team. They don't really have that much speed control, so we should be able to just go for Redirection Trick Room here, but that's probably an Imprison Curious Medicine Slow King or an Imprison Gengar. This is where I would highly recommend utilizing something like a Flutter main instead of a Hatterene, so you can outspeed those Gengars or those other Imprison Mons, bully them, so you can still set up Trick Room with your teammates. So you can lead like Indeedee Flutter main and go for like a potential like Specs boosted Dazzling Gleam or something to blow something up, or you can just go Redirection Trick Room with your Hat, let one of the Mons die, bring out Torkoal in the game. There's so many different things you can do, but you can bully those Imprison users. I think in this situation, though, because they don't really have Fake Out on anything other than Sneasler, we can probably just get away with going like these. I want to see if you have Ghost Tera on your Lilligant. You do. Good job. Awesome. And Torkoal is still Fire Tera, so that's actually still fine. These 2 are still fine. We're going to bring the Indeedee here. And again, I don't really think you need Ursaluna. I think any situation where this team, with how hard of a Trick Room you're playing, any situation where you'd be winning with Ursaluna, you could win with almost any Mon that has like a lower than base 100 speed. And so you actually want to put a Mon there in that slot. And same thing for the Hatterene slot. That should definitely probably be the Flutter main. You need Mons that like can actually help you get up your Trick Rooms off and help you actually close out games for the most part once the Trick Room's up. Yes, Ursaluna does a great job about closing Trick Room teams, but usually, closing out games once Trick Room's up, but you have to like Protect, get your Guts procs. That's wasting your own Trick Room turns. You'd be much better off with something like a Landorus there in that situation, being able to provide Intimidate so Armarouge can actually mitigate damage enough and have like a correct enough EV spread to actually, you know, trade with people, as opposed to just like going, well, trade correctly, like trade for like 1 for 2. So in that board state, I want you to notice that they locked in Gengar in the very first slot, even though Garchomp is at the top of their team. That means that they know they want a Gengar. They started at the team preview at the very top. They went down 2 to select Gengar first. That means they have a very, very important thing that Gengar has to do this game. That's telling me this is an Imprison Gengar. Then they went back up to select Garchomp to cover for the Lilligant aspect, which we see right here, but you see what I mean. Very, very, very important. I would also say, so that means it's obviously Imprison, which they're not going to be doing this turn, but we're probably just going to go for after you do the thing, and then probably bring out Armarouge, and then just go like after you Heat Wave. That's my idea here. That being said, I would really like it if the Torkoal had Protect on this team, so you could Protect correctly. We're going to after you our Torkoal, and we're actually not going to use our Fire Tera, because we need to save it for Armarouge to better deal with Garchomp. Perfect. So, yeah, we're just be clocking Sashes and hitting like a Garchomp. We don't need to do anything spectacular here. Oh, no Sash. Cool. Works for us. So you see, like, going Fire Tera there wouldn't really get us anything that we didn't already have. But you can see the importance of, like, understanding where your opponent's leading with what in the team preview based off the order that they go with it in. Dragon Tail does. It's not vested Garchomp, though. That's very weird, because it took way too much damage. But you see, we didn't really waste our Tera. And now when we bring an Indeedee or Armarouge, we can just go for an after you into a Trick Room and then win the game with Torkoal in the back. Cool. I will also say on your Torkoal moveset, you have Flamethrower, Earth Power, Heat Wave, Eruption. You don't need those 3 fire attacks. You just need 1, maybe 2. There's the Luna. Weird choice of Mon to bring out right here. I'm not afraid of Luna. That's one thing. I think what I'm going to do here is pivot in the Indeedee. I know this sounds very weird. And then just go like Grass Tera to block an Earthquake or anything not normal, and just Expanding Force into a double dip Expanding Force. Yes, we have 0 speed reduced on our Armarouge, but we should still be outspeeding in Ursaluna. I would actually highly recommend going back and making sure that your Indeedee, Armarouge, even your Torkoal in some situations actually have some speed investment so they can like bully other Trick Room teams, so you're not really reliant on Trick Room to win your games. I think the biggest thing to take and play like a Lilycole Sunroom team at like a tournament, the biggest difference in like understanding it isn't having the perfect EVs, isn't having the perfect moveset, it's understanding how your different flowcharts work together, and when you can deviate from something very standard to like pick off a game 1, pick off a game 2 or game 3. Like in this game, for example, we didn't Terastallize the Torkoal. We led Lilycole when Trick Room would have been just fine, but we over-respected Imprison, and you now see the board state that we're in. Our opponent can't really do anything because we didn't play the game going into the Armarouge like they wanted us to, right? They can Headlong Rush. We have the right Tera for this. I still think Grass Tera can be good on Armarouge. Obviously, it's very good in this exact situation. But I feel like you might even want like a Psy1 if you're going to actually be using Twisted Spoon, which I don't think you should be using. We'll talk about that when we have to do the team fixing part. But here's a Slowking here, and that thing is a Psychic Poison, so we can just do the same move again. We just make sure, Poison Psychic, yeah, we're just going to do the exact same thing. And I think I'm just going to go for the Helping Hand. Yeah. I'm not a big fan of Helping Hand Indeedee, obviously we're using it right here, but again, Helping Hand is one of those like win more moves, just like your Ursaluna. You have a lot of win more Pokemon, which means if you do all the right work to get up the Trick Room, you're probably going to win. But in reality, against good players, especially like an open team sheet format like you're submitting this team for, it's going to be really hard to get up that Trick Room if you don't have the right tech, if you don't have the right redirection, if you don't have the right speed tiers, right EVs, right item choices. So instead of giving yourself more win, more options, what I would be doing in your situation is giving yourself more options to even potentially have a chance to get Trick Room up, so then from there you can have a chance to win later. That's just my opinion. Alright, this is pretty standard. We're seeing a lot of like Shenpao, we're seeing a lot of like Brambleghast Torn. This is very, very solid. So let's see. How do we lose to this? We lose to this by like Imprison, right? This is the one way that we lose to something like this. Imprison on either the Flutter, Imprison on the Far Draft. If there's no Imprison, we can just lead like Indeedee Armarouge and get it up every single time. So this is where something like a Flutter to be able to like bully the Far Giraffe, or a Flutter to like bully their Flutter, could make it so if we lead like a Trick Room user and our bully, we can force them to respect the bully, which means they're not imprisoning, which means we imprison, then we bring our Torkoal and win the game, right? So that being said, what do we really want to do here? I think that Lilligant is still a good option. I think that Torkoal can still be a good option. I think even like Lilligant and Armarouge can be a good option if we know they're going to lead Imprison Far Giraffe, if that is even Imprison Far Giraffe, just because we can go after you with Lilligant before the Imprison comes out, get up our Trick Room, and then we just win the game. But that being said, Far Giraffe is going to be an issue. I don't think there's a problem with just leading Redirection Trick Room here, because even if they lead Flutter, if it is imprisoning, we can just click Expanding Force. I think this is still the most safe play that we have. Definitely still going to bring Torkoal here, but I don't think you ever need Luna, because if you're going to be winning any matchup where you're already going to be getting that up, I think that we would be better off with either Lilligant or Hat, and I'm going to bring the Lilligant. I think that Hatterene is okay, but remember what we were talking about. Ursaluna is a win more Pokemon. Hatterene does a very similar job of what Armarouge and Indeedee already do. We don't need to like double up on those slots. Also, like the Hatterene EV spread that you're using, it It's okay. I don't think there's a problem with like having the 36 in defense. But in reality, you take points out of special attack before you took points out of like HP on Hatterene. It's such a low stat. You're basically shooting yourself in the foot. This is very similar to what we talked about in the last part, where we see that the Fargiraffe is in the very first slot, even though it's a Pokemon that was in the very back, which means this is a huge tell that this is an imprisoned Fargiraffe. So we're going to want to try and get that thing off the board as soon as possible. I don't think there's an issue, realistically, which is going Dazzling Gleam and going Expanding Force. It's not going to do that much damage. This is also to stop them from going Rain Dance. And we can always like switch in the Torkoal next turn. But we don't even have to try and Trick Room right now. This is just a bunch of damage. Absolutely fine. There's a Tailwind. This should be very okay, even if they're going for something weird. They could also Trick Room themselves, which would be kind of weird. There's the Imprison. It's completely fine. You see the Imprison. You respect that Mon. And we do our best here. We're doing it just like this in case we want to get the Torn off the board here. Awesome. That's breaking the potential Torn Sash. That's why we went for the Dazzling Gleam. So it's good damage there. They can bring out like Urshifu, but then we can just go like Follow Me, Expanding Force again. So it's same thing. We can Heat Wave if it's Shempow. We're in a very, very dominant spot. We did not need to set Trick Room right there. There's a Shempow. Cool. You can Ice Spinner. That's completely fine. Ice Spinner would get hit by... This is probably where the Sash realistically is. But yeah, this would break your Sash and we just go down to the Heat Wave. And the Heat Wave might even be able to take out the Fargiraffe here. It definitely could if we wanted to be like that guy and like swap in our Torkoal. But it's okay. This is still completely fine. And see, like in these situations, like you don't always have to win with TR. You just have to know exactly what your opponent does need to do to beat you and keep it just out of range. I feel like the pitfalls for playing like Sunroom are very easy to fall into if you don't think about, like, if you don't put yourself in your opponent's shoes, it can be really easy to fall into them. You don't always need Trick Room if you already have like enough bulk and enough speed control. This guy doesn't even get it, obviously. So they're using a rental team that's a good team, but they don't know how to play it. And you know what? That's completely fine. You're going to see a lot of that stuff at events if you're going to events, especially in the first couple rounds. So let's go for the Heat Wave. Awesome. And so now I think the best play in this exact situation would be something like... Oh, we got a burn. That's funny. We didn't even need the burn, obviously. Yeah, we were going to just probably protect and like go Indeedee or something, and then have Indeedee just Dazzling Gleam. But Shempow gets KO'd. I'm thinking the last one might be Urshifu, which means all we have to do is just go Follow Me and Expanding Force. Again, a game where we don't need Trick Room, right? We don't even need Trick Room, which means if we don't need Trick Room, you know what else we don't need? We don't need things like Ursaluna or Hat to be like mons that are such good more mons. It would have been a lot easier to win this game if we had other tech options like a Flutter main or something else to work with. Note that we do not want to go for a Heat Wave against a Bramblegast, just because it's the right place still, actually, just to go with Follow Me here. Just because that Wind Ride or Heat Wave is a wind-based move, it's better just to go for the Expanding Force. Ooh, they're going Tera. They got Dark Tera. I don't know about that one, Chief. And so, like I said, with these sort of teams, the team that was submitted here, Sunroom is all about understanding what your different flowcharts look like. So when I build a team for like a best of 3 open team sheet tournament, I like to have all of my lead combinations sorted into groups. So like obviously an S tier lead would be something like Indeedee-Armarouge. A second one would be like Torkoal Lilligant. Right? Those are my S tier leads. Those are gonna get me wins on games, right? Then we'd have like A tier lead combinations, things that like could work, things like on your team, things like Hatterene and Indeedee. That is good in some situations. Things like, you know, I mean, that's basically it, because you're basically have such a win more options. You're basically really you have 2 good leads and you have a bunch of like other not great leads, but you want to understand where every single lead falls into place with like S tier leads, A tier leads, B tier, C tier, D tier, F tier. So like obviously like the worst lead this team could probably do would be something like Torkoal Luna, right? And the only good thing about that, you want to find good things about all those leads. You can pivot out Torkoal for Indeedee to block a fake out, and then like go for Protect on Luna to get its guts active, and then just go like Redirection Indeedee, but then you don't have any speed control and you lose. There are situations where that could work, but you have to understand exactly what those situations are, and I think that's the most important part about understanding how to play Sunroom. What we're going to do right now is we're going to take a look at your EVs in depth. We're making a lot of changes to this team because I think that you're so close to almost having like a perfect Sunroom team that can be a real pain for a lot of people to play against. If you remember correctly, we're taking a look at basically a bunch of these things. They said they might run Specs or Charcoal on Torkoal. I think there are better options. Normal Ghost Tera Luna, I think we should just cut the Luna. I think Luna is definitely too slow to actually work on a team like this, because we're not going to be able to actually close out games before Trick Room's over. I don't think you need Wide Guard on Armarouge. I definitely think Sleep Powder is amazing on Lilligant. All you really need to disincentivize fake outs is using Indeedee or using like a Ghost Tera, which we're already using, and then Protect or Flamethrower on Torkoal. Protect is definitely a better option in the situation. I don't think you need like Eruption, Flamethrower, and Heat Wave. If anything, you would actually just want to use Overheat. So anytime you ever want to use Flamethrower, just think about using Overheat instead. So let's go take a look at changing a bunch of these EVs and see if we can actually get something done here. I want to talk about what mons we want to keep. I think that Indeedee is fine. We need to change its EVs. Armarouge is fine. We need to change its EVs. You do not need this Hatterene. Any situation where like Hatterene's getting you a win, again, I've said this so many times, you're already in such a dominating position where Hatterene isn't bringing anything different to the table that like a redirection mon or like something else doesn't already do just as well, if not better. So you don't need the Hatterene. And the Ursaluna, you could probably just cut this mon. It's a cool mon, and it's not like it's terrible. It's just that it doesn't actually provide any differences in what we're forcing our opponent to respect in the team for you. So that when they see this team, they see, okay, I see Redirection, I see Trick Room, I see Sun. That's the things that they're tunneling to. When they see the Luna, they're not respecting Luna at the start. We want to give them a lot more things they have to respect at the start of the game. So they can't just lead, like in that first slot, like both of those games, they're Imprison Mon and try and just roll us over, right? Because if they get to the Imprison, we will lose. So we need to have other Mons that can punish them for even thinking about imprisoning. And if they do want to imprison, which is still completely fine, they're going to lose a mon for it. If not the imprison user, but their teammate. So then they're forced in that last game that we showed, like a situation where they just go down a mon early, and then, yeah, they got the imprison up, but they still lose the game because they have less mons than we do. So I think two mons that we would actually really want to add here are going to be Flutter or Landorus. I think Landorus is actually very good here for a couple of reasons. We'll talk about that in a minute. But Fluttermane can do a couple things. If you wanted to run an Imprison Flutter with Trick Room, you totally could. And imprison their Imprisons with your Imprison, the Imprisonception. You can also run a Klefki and do that too. Klefki is one of the few mons that gets that Prankster Imprison with Trick Room. So you can use Klefki as a good secondary setter a little bit later on in the game. Or you can like imprison the imprison users. I don't really recommend that. I think that Fluttermane is just going to be a little bit better option. And this gives us so many more options for like a game 3. So like in game 1, we can play like Indeedee-Armarouge, and then in game 2 we can go like Torkoal Lilligant, and then in game 3 we have options to go like Fluttermane with any of these mons, or Landorus with any of these mons, or even Fluttermane and Landorus together and play outside of our own speed tiers. And this helps us bully other Trick Room teams, right? It's about expanding and bringing a bunch of different flowchart options to the table. So if we go into this one, let's start taking a look at some of the Indeedee EV spread changes we want to make first. Actually, let's change our moves first. The biggest thing that you're going to need to do on this team is add protects. It's an open team sheet, right? They can see that you can't protect. They know every single time Indeedee's ever on the board, they know to nuke that slot. You do not need Helping Hand in this situation. You do not need it. It's a win more thing. That the hardest part for this team is getting a Trick Room. You don't need it. So we have Protect, we have Follow Me, we have Trick Room, we want Dazzling Gleam here. Just to be able to break Shen Pows and stuff like that. Still a solid option. We got the Armarouge here. Expand Force, Heat Wave, Trick, and Protect. This is the set that I'm comfortable with. I don't really think you're seeing that many wide guards. But if you are seeing wide guards, you can think about cutting Heat Wave for something like Armor Cannon, or even something like Aura Sphere in some situations. Again, I'm very comfortable with this play because we're going to be moving some stuff around and giving ourselves other options. Like most things that we'll be using wide guard, things like Fluttermane and Landorus can definitely deal with, so it's not that big of a deal. For the Torkoal, we want the Heat Wave, we want the Eruption, we want the Earth Power. I'm a fan of Protect here, and this is going to give us so many more options with our Lilligant as a flowchart, right? So you saw the first game we played, we went up against like Gengar Garchomp. What we can actually do against that is go like Lilycole, go Protect Torkoal, and like Sleep Powder one, and then Sleep Powder the other on Eruption. And that's basically giving us a better board than just an after Eruption. Because if we hit the Sleep Powders, we get to have our cake and eat it too. Because we sleep one, sleep the other, Eruption, get a KO, and then sleep the other one after that, or after that, and just win the game. So being able to Protect with Torkoal, make it so Torkoal doesn't have to take a lot of damage, it can be very, very good on this sort of team. We still need to mess with our items, we still need to mess with our EV spreads, but we're getting our moves right first. This is the right moveset that I would use on this Pokemon. It works, there's nothing wrong with it. For this Flutter, I'm just going to let you know we're probably going to use a Choice Specs here. And I like the Choice Specs because I think it tells your opponent a lot of information about your Flutter. that you want them to know. You want them to know that your whole point of this Flutter is to deal damage, and that's important. So we're going to have things like Moonblast. We're going to have things like Dazzling Gleam for that AoE. We're going to have things like Shadow Ball. And then I'm actually a humongous fan recently about putting Trick Room on my Specs Flutters. I think it's a joke, but I've played in a couple of online tours. I've played against in a couple of online tours. And sometimes in those games, 2 or 3 situations, you just need to get a Trick Room so Torkoal can win. And when you lead like Flutter main and Indeedee, and they don't really they think you're just going to go follow me Dazzling Gleam with like a Fairy Tera or something, and you just go follow me Trick Room, Indeedee goes down to like a nuke from like an Urshifu or something like that, and then you just bring up Torkoal, the game is over. The game is just actually over. There's nothing they can really do about that. So I'm a fan of this. If you don't like it, there's definitely other moves you can use. You can use like Power Gem, you can use Thunderbolt, but this keeps your opponent honest and gives you win conditions where you wouldn't normally have them. And sometimes being able to lead like double Trick Room users can be really good, because if I were to lead like Flutter main and Indeedee or Flutter main and Armarouge, they might think, well, if I get up the Armarouge, there's no Trick Room. So they might double into the Armarouge, respecting that slot, thinking that like we're trading with the Flutter main. Flutter main sets the TR, you bring up the Torkoal. Torkoal is usually enough to just win the game by itself against all of those very, very hyper-aggressive teams. So I think this is a very good option. And the Landorus. This is a bit of a weird mon here. I definitely think you want Protect on Lando. I don't think you need U-turn on Lando in this format. Any situation where you're clicking the U-turn, you can just hard switch the Lando. But Lando does one thing very well that not that many Pokemon do, and that's it checks Heatran very, very well. We can put things like Stomping Tantrum here and Tera Blast and make it Tera Flying. And so this will check Heatran when it's in its regular Heatran form, and this will check Heatran when it's in its Tera Grass form, right? So this is basically just like a, hey, I know you want to bring Heatran to fight my Torkoal. How about you don't, right? How about you just don't? And then how about if you have like matchups that are very dependent on physical attackers like Dragonites that are multi-scale or Shen Pouch or something like that, how about you don't? This keeps our Flutter main from getting like O-Code by Sucker Punch from Shinpao, and it's just more stuff your opponent has to think about in the team preview. This last move slot can be almost anything you want. We can make it Rock Slide, you can make it Swords Dance. If there's a tech move you want to use here, you can put Taunt here if you really like it. I don't think you need Taunt. I really thought about using Taunt here because it's a new move for Landorus this gen, but I don't think you need it. I think anything that would be using Imprison would be fast. Fargiraffe is an option. Obviously, you could taunt the Fargiraffe. You could just KO the Fargiraffe with the Landorus. So there's a few other options. You could put Fisher there. You could put so many different things. Landorus gets a lot of stuff, which we can definitely come back to and think about what we want to use. I think Rock Slide's a solid option, but let's go back and start taking a look at more of what we need to change on this team. So I don't think you need Grass Tera here. I think that Amoonguss is definitely falling out of the meta. And if I were to use a type here, it's such a hard sell. I would probably use a type that like would help me not. I would probably use Fairy typing here for 2 reasons. First of all, you might want to use Fairy typing to make sure that it's basically just improving your Urshifu Dark matchup and like your matchup against like Chi-Yu as well. But then also like it can improve the power of your Dazzling Gleam. And so I actually want to take a look at like a damage calculator and see how much damage we do to Urshifu Dark and things like Shenpao. So we plug in like Indeedee female here. Blank set this to 50. Make sure it's set to doubles. Go to Dazzling Gleam and go for like Urshifu Dark. And so being able to hit like Urshifu Dark, we'll also be able to hit Urshifu Water, also be able to hit things like Shenpao. Dazzling Gleam does a lot, but it would actually be really good if we could get a KO there. And you can see we need like way too much to get that KO. But if we were to make ourselves like Fairy Tera in a few very niche situations, and click the button here, you can see that we can definitely get that KO. It over KOs if we just go Fairy Tera. So I think that's definitely like worth doing. I also think like if we were to take a look at like Modest, take our Fairy Tera off, we might be able to find a situation where like, there we go. So 196 will actually let us get that. And I think that's completely fine because this Indeedee does not need to stick on the board for that long at all. Like it really doesn't. I'm a big fan of like a 196 Modest here. And you would think like, but I'm using like Rocky Helmet, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. That's completely fine. This Indeedee needs to redirect, go down, and open up a spot for Torkoal or Landorus or Armarouge to come in. That's 100% this thing's only job. And when they look at this set, they're not going to know that you have this much special attack. They're not going to know that you do like over half to their Dragonite and like 80% of their Shenpao, right? So you're in a good spot here. I would highly recommend something like this. You can still go max HP, and you just throw the rest in, well, not the rest. I would say also, I don't know if you have like a 0 IV speed reduced Indeedee. I don't know how you would get one, but you don't need one. I would put about 12 points in speed on mine and just do something like this. Just throw the rest in defense because you are still using that Rocky helmet. You can also think about putting a goggles there if it's really that big of a deal, if Amoonguss is that big of a deal. But I think the Rocky helmet does a good job about disincentivizing like Shenpao Knight as being a lead, and this is a good enough spread. This also gets us to a 107, which isn't that important, but it lets us outspeed things at the right tiers. Remember, this would be outspeeding like Polt if we had access to Tailwind, which we don't, but you know, this lets us outspeed a couple of mons that we wouldn't normally be able to outspeed, especially like other Indeedees. As for the Armarouge, again, I don't think you need to be speed reduced. I think you should be trying to bully other Trick Room teams. To a point where I would put about 20 points into speed on this guy. You can still keep the max special attack, but then from there, I don't really know the item choice. Like, what we can also do is kind of fun. You can put like Bulldoze on Landorus and like Bulldoze policy proc, weakness policy, just blow things up if you really wanted to. But that being said, I don't think you need to do that. That's just a little bit of a joke. Let's see, what do we really want to put on this Armarouge? You can put a Covert Cloak. There's nothing really wrong with that. You can put a Mental Orb on it, and that's such a weird choice. But it basically means like there are some situations where you can kind of not have to have Indeedee on the board, and you can lead like Armarouge Landorus and be like, what are you going to do, huh? You can't do nothing, right? There are situations where I think we're using Life Orb with the Torkoal, right? We're going to use Life Orb over there. We're using our Sash here, Specs here. You can keep the Twisted Spoon. I don't think it's, like, needed. I'd probably use something like a Leftovers here, especially because we have, like, Landorus, and we can, like, weave that in and play a little bit of a longer game. You can talk a little bit about potentially using an air balloon, believe it or not, because your whole point is you need to get up the Trick Room, right? Imagine if you had an air balloon. Well, air balloon sucks because it makes it so Expanding Force doesn't work. But you get what I mean. Like a damage reduction berry would be just as good. Being able to like mitigate something that you really don't want to deal with, something like a dark reduced berry or like a ground reduced berry or like a water reduced berry if that's something you're really afraid of. Just looking at what we got over here, I feel that like just showing like Twisted Spoon is not like enough. Hell, like something like a Quick Claw could be like super good because like what is that for? Why do you have a Quick Claw, right? There's not that many other moves. You could use a Room Service if you really want to be that guy, but it's not like that important. I guess Twisted Spoon is fine. It's not something I'm really that comfortable with. I would probably go Leftovers here and make ourselves very, very bulky. But realistically, something just like this is fine. You still want to put the points heavily in HP, just put the last 4 in those last 4, and you're good to go. I think it's okay. But being able to have Leftovers could be an option with the Landorus being able to weave in. Landorus could also use a Leftovers itself. Charcoal Torkoal, I think you'd be better off with the Life Orb here. The Torkoal set that I've been using recently, I'm just going to show it to you. I'm going to go find it. This is my showdown. I have all these teams we're working on. If you guys have a team you want to submit for Patreon team fixing, think about checking out the Patreon. Even the lowest tier, the $2 tier, gets access to all this stuff. Let's see. Let's find this right Torkoal set, and I'll go over it. I think you've actually used this Torkoal set at a regional before. I'm very comfortable with this Torkoal set right here. It outspeeds other Torkoal. It's modest, right? So you can actually lead against Amoongusses. When they just have Amoonguss, you just lead and you just outspeed their Amoonguss. So like if I lead Lilycole and you lead like Amoonguss something, we can just do whatever we want. We don't even have to lead Lily. We can lead like Cole anything. We just outspeed their Amoonguss if their speed reduced 0 speed. I think in previous formats, Amoonguss was a much bigger threat, but right now we're not seeing a lot of Amoonguss. So we don't really have to respect Amoonguss as much, but this Torkoal set lets us take reduced damage from the Life Orb. We're ending our HP in 9. It still hits really, really hard. It still does all the right moves, and it does everything Torkoal needs to do. I think this is just a really, really solid Torkoal set, and I would highly recommend it. If you want to use Charcoal, you can, but this does the damage that you need. Lilligant, you got everything right. You could think maybe about changing that to Dark. I know I like Dark on my Lilligant in some situations because it stops breaks her taunt, so we can always go for our moves. So that's a thing that I'm a fan of, but I don't think you need to. On the Flutter, I think you definitely want to double dip your Fairy typing here so we can threaten like the Dazzling Gleam Moonblasts. And then from there, there's so many different ways to play Flutter. Like, you know, you're going to be getting a special attack or a speed boost from your Protosynthesis, or even a Spadef boost, Lamau. But I'm actually a fan of getting the speed boost. I like the speed boost on Flutter because we're able to bully other Flutters out of the game. That's just my opinion. They don't know where you're getting these boosts from, but they're probably assuming that you're going to be like a special attack boost on like the Trick Room team with like some bulk investment on the Flutter, and you definitely can do stuff like that, but I'm more comfortable with stuff like this, and I think that this is one of the situations where like cookie cutter, easy peasy lemon squeezy, it definitely works. Now remember how you had that Hatterene with Water Tera? Landorus is going to be that mon that you can use against other Sunroom teams. But we also have Intimidate if we need it too, so it's really, really good. You can Intimidate cycle this thing versus things like Ursaluna. There's a lot of stuff you can do here. I still don't know really like what move we want to put in this last spot. Rock Slide's probably fine. Swords Dance is good. Taunt is good. You don't really need like a lot of this stuff. It does get Imprison, Lamau. But yeah, I think that like we can just put Rock Slide here. But I will say, like, just take a look around, like, placing names with Landorus. If you want something like a Rock Tomb, so you can, like, better weave in your Flutter and stuff like that in, like, the mid to late game situations and have, like, speed control, that might be an option. You could even, heck, if you really wanted to put, like, Weakness Policy, Armarouge, you know, Weak Armor, Bulldoze, Policy Proc, things like that, you definitely could. You could also just, like, Earthquake yourself. It doesn't do that much damage. But realistically with Landorus, I think there's like 3 or 4 different sets you can go, and I would probably just go Clear Amulet, saying like this Landorus needs to do X, Y, and Z, needs to hit Heatran correctly. So we're going to take a look at some Landorus calcs. Landorus is a pretty good mon. And how often do you think you'll be bringing this Landorus? Very infrequently. Very infrequently. It does 90%, 99% of its job in the team preview, disincentivizing those Heatrans, disincentivizing people from just leading Shenpao Knight, disincentivizing like big physical attacker teams, and basically just raising your bar up a much higher level for people that like shouldn't be there. Like Garchomp doesn't want to come and get intimidated. Meme Mons don't want to come and get intimidated. We're going up against Heatran. Right, so we're going to check against Heatran. Heatran has 2 sets, like I was talking about. Basically, the first one is the Fire Steel one, right? And then the second one is like the Grass or Bug one, which we're going to be having as a Flying Tera for. So Grass right here. So we have Stomping Tantrum. So we need to see just how much damage we do with our options here. Physical, and we have like Flying Tera if we need it, right? So you can see Stomping Tantrum is just Oko's Heatran, right? But Heatran's usually built full HP, and some Heatrans are, this is about as bulky as they are getting, so we need to probably be at least Adamant, right? And that's enough to Oko. And then if we take ourselves and make ourselves Flying Tera, but then they go Grass, we still need this to Oko, and I don't know if it does, but like it'd be really nice. So it does, it can Oko, but you see how I said some Heatrans are putting points in HP, right, or defense right now. If they don't, they have a 68% chance to get Oko'd there. You could realistically, if we want to be that guy, right, we could cut the Clear Amulet for something like an Expert Belt and make sure that always gets it. So make sure that we take these points out here and make this just enough to barely KO right there. All right, so 172 on that. So probably like an Expert Belt. Expert Belt's a weird item choice on Lando, but like, it works. You're starting to see like benefits of also just like hitting genies and stuff like that. Let's calc for Tornadus right now. Let's see how much damage you do to Tornadus. Tornadus with like an Expert Belt of like Rock Slide. Rock Slide right here. So you can see that does a lot of damage with the Expert Belt. That's a lot. That's like over half. If we didn't have the Expert Belt, you know, it's just, if they had like some bulk investment, that'd be like a 3-shot in some situations. But because we have the Expert Belt, which we'll put back on, it's always a 2-shot, which is actually kind of nice. There might be like another random move coverage that you might want. You might actually want to use something like Stone Edge. You might want to use something like Grass Knot. Like I think Expert Belt Grass Knot could potentially check Gastrodon in some situations. It's definitely worth thinking about at least. Let's just see how much damage it does. So let's go Gastrodon. Because Landorus can be built like physical or special. It can be mixed. Landorus can do a bunch of different cool stuff. So let's just plug in like let's plug in Grass Knot. That's good damage. It's uninvested, like good damage against the Gastro. Obviously Gastros would have something like 216 or 212. That's still a 2-shot, you know? That's a special attack reduced. What if we were just neutral? That's a lot of damage. So, like, there are situations where you can get away with, like, some other stuff here. I think Rock Slide's fine. You don't really need this Landorus for anything. You can also put, like, lefties there if you don't want to do those sort of things. But 172 is fine. 172. We need to think about what we need to outspeed with this Landorus. And realistically, most of the mons we need to hit. There's nothing wrong with being full speed Lando here either. So you can always outspeed Annihilate. So you can just go for straight up, like, Terra Blast into that guy. That'd be great. But let's see. Goldango is something I would always want to outspeed. So Landorus is a 1-0. This is the wrong Landorus. I'm doing all these calcs with the wrong Landorus. Oh my gosh. I apologize. Alright. Everyone's like, THATSAplusONE, you're doing the wrong calcs. They should just give me the Landorus I want. I knew that was weird. This guy's a lot more attack, so let's go back and do all these calcs again. So let's go back to Heatran. I apologize for that. I'm not going to edit it out. You guys are learning how regular Landorus calcs work today. Give this guy Grass Tera. Gives ourselves Flying Tera. But like, if regular Landorus can do that much, like I knew when I saw like the Grass Knot how much damage, I was like, this is wrong. So let's give ourselves Stomping Tantrum. Stomping Tantrum. Let's give ourselves what is that? Tera Blast, Tera Flying, and let's just put like Rock Slide here to see. Because I was like, that Rock Slide should have done more damage too. Anyways, Rock Slide. Okay, so against a Heatran, you can see if we make ourselves Adamant and they're like grass like that, if we were to do like a 250, 260, that seems more appropriate. We don't even need the Expert Belt. I was like, I didn't think yeah, we do still need it. All right. To be able to KO those guys. But you can take so much more out of attack now. So you only need like 12 points to be able to KO a Heatran with Tera Blast with an Expert Belt, right? With a Stomping Tantrum, like let's see what happens. That's 140%. They're like super gone. You can see this makes ourselves be able to be a lot bulkier. So you can either run like an Expert Belt on like a really, really bulky set, or you can run something like, you can run an Expert Belt on a bulky set, or you can run like an aggressive set with like a Clear Amulet. Both are options. I want to see how much damage you do to Tornadus with the Rock Slide. I'm very curious. So Tornadus Rock Slide, 68 from that. Is there a way to make that Oko? I'm just curious. Because that would actually be super nice. Yeah, there's no way to get that to Oko. Well, that's fine. It's always a 2-shot. So as long as we keep that in like 2-shot range, we're good to go. And it's always going to be in 2-shot range. But yeah, I think something like, we only really need 12 there to make that work. I'm going to make sure that we had those calcs right. Because that doesn't seem as right as I want it to be. And I think this is the most important like thing to calc for, because like this is Landorus's one job, is to make sure it can actually fight Heatran correctly. Give ourselves Flying right there. Give themselves Grass. Doesn't seem like it should be able to do that much. Adamant Expert Belt, 252, 60. Yeah, they're dead. They're still gone. So I mean, hey, that works. That means we can probably get away with like making sure we gotta outspeed Goldango. Let's go back to Goldango. We might have to put like a lot more attack investment to be able to make sure that we Oko Goldango with Stomping Tantrum. You can put Fisher on there and a Fisher Tantrum. Oh, dude, that's actually like not even bad. It's actually like not even bad. But then we can't really hit Flying type, so I don't really like that. All right, so let's see how much damage. Stomping Tantrum almost just Oko Sweeper Dangos. So let's put that up to 20. Make sure that always, or 28, to make sure that always kills Sweeper Dangos. And then like Goldango can get this fast. So we need to outspeed that by like 1 point. So like Specs, Timid Dangos can't like be bullies against us. So 149. So we need to get this landed to 150. Which we can't if we want to be jolly. So this is going to be changing up our calcs quite a bit. So we need to get to 185 attack then. 185 attack is the number we need to get. And we can get there by not using nature. Right? And then we'll be jolly here. And this has to get to 150. So this is the way that we have to do it. So this is the stat number that we need to get to on Lando. This is the attack stat that we need to get to. We're not using our nature as correctly, but this is the only way to get to the speed stat to always outspeed Dangos. And realistically, if we're going to go that far, we might as well outspeed things that outspeed Dango by 1 more point. And then from there, we just split up the rest of these into bulk. So it's a very weird Lando set, but it definitely does what you need to do. And I think it can actually work in this team. So hopefully the changes that we made work here. I think, yeah, because we have Water Tera for defensive coverage. Yeah, there's just a solid looking squad. Let's go play some games on Showdown and see if the changes that we actually made on this team help in a, you know, in a more, I don't even know. Let's just go play some games on Showdown, see if this team works. All right, Sand. It's a pretty decent matchup. Very, very aggressive, right? So we know that we can utilize Landorus very, very well against this team. So like leading Landorus can be very, very nice. And then like being able to lead with like something like Armarouge or Indeedee could be very good here. I don't think we're really afraid of like priority moves all that much. But I do think like Indeedee could be just a really, really good mon here, being able to just go for Trick Room. And then you win with Torkoal in the back. I think our mons in the back that we could think about bringing here. I'm going to bring the Armarouge. Expanding Force just melts half those things. So Talonflame's fine, Garchomp's fine, easy peasy lemon squeezy, great double intimidate. Let's see if there's any clear amulets. Looks like no clear amulet, which means realistically we can do a lot of different stuff here. I'm actually just going to Rock Slide and go for a Trick Room. I don't think there's a reason why we shouldn't. They can taunt our Indeedee, I don't really care. They're probably Tailwinding to outpace this Lando. And I will say, I think when I was team building it, I had this Lando set as water, but obviously we need to be flying. Swords Dance in my face, yo. So almost takes out that Talonflame, literally never lucky, but it's okay because we have Dazzling Gleam. So in this exact situation, I think we can probably get away with something like this. Probably should be able to get a double KO here. Flying Tera, Tera Blast plus the Dazzling Gleam should be able to break this Garchomp easy peasy lemon squeezy. We should be able to deal with the Talonflame as well. And then from here, I think that because we got Trick Room up and they Tailwinded this basically this game. And this lead, you see what I mean? This kind of forces your opponent to go for those speed boosting moves, like those Tailwinds, stuff like that. Landorus is a big threat. Don't get the KO there. That should be fine. Next turn, they get taken down by Indeedee. And so what I would probably do is I want to see if they see T-Tar here, because we might just cycle out the Landorus. There's the T-Tar, like we talked about. I think this is super, super okay. We can just go for that. Hard swap out. Like, you just swap in the Torkoal, take the damage, and we're going to lock ourselves in, like, Earth Power or something. Yeah, takes away the T-Tar Sand Boost. I'm okay with this. So just get some Sun Boost. Protect Garchomp. No big deal. Hopefully it's not policy, but, like, what are you going to do, right? It is policy, never lucky. Yeah, that sucks, right? That's definitely not great. They still have a Tailwind up, though, so I still think we're in a good enough spot. We need to bring the Landorus back out. We can definitely... I think we can just get the T-Tar low-key off the board. Yeah, let's see if T-Tar protects. If they do, then we'll double protect and then we outspeed. Because right now the only reason we're underspeeding T-Tar is because they have a Tailwind. So we should be fine here. Weakness policy T-Tar is still super weird. You don't see that all that often. Normally they're vested. So Dazzling Gleam does a good damage to the Garchomp. Single target Dazzling Gleam, Expert Belt boosted, taking out the T-Tar. That's what we like to see right there. And then what's our last mon? Is it Bundle? We'll take those wins. So it's a pretty good game. We're going to go into another one though. Weakness policy T-Tar, that's so weird. You really just don't see that all that often. Alright, this is stupid. Dozo Tatsu with Spirit Tomb. So that's probably an Imprisoned Mon. Let's see if they lock that in first. Jolteon can be a little bit weird. I think in this board state, though, I think that, like, Landorus is a good mon to intimidate cycle the Dozo, but, like, I don't know if it's right here. I think that we can probably just get away with, like, Indeedee-Armarouge. I don't think that, like, there's anything wrong with that, because if they want to imprison, we can just hit them in the face. We can also just go, like, Lilycole here. Yeah, it's fine. Lilycole's good. Lilycole works. And then do I want this Lando? It's not like it's bad here. It's good against Tauros, which is a threatening mon for us. Armarouge is still really good. I still actually think that, like, Armarouge could be good. But let's go. Let's go, like, Lilycole. Let's try Lilycole, Flutter, Lando, and show you what a little bit more of, like, the aggressive version of this team looks like. So we're going to go, like, after Eruption, lose the Torkoal, bring out bring out Flutter Mane, get these speed boost, and just bully them. We're going to bully this guy out of this game. This guy rejected open team sheets. What a villain. I know this team is made to be played in open team sheet as well. You can play it on open or closed, but I would say it's probably better in open because it shows your opponent a very unique, like, move and item choices. That's a weird, weird lead. So Protosynthesis boosts speed. Okay. Protosynthesis boosts speed. I don't really see an issue with, like, that. We don't need our Tera on our other types. We could even realistically just do, like, Eruption, just like a standard Eruption. No, this is fine. I'm okay with this. You can swap out that Dozo, I don't care. Bring that Dozo and take this damage. Yep. I mean... They're the ones that did that, you know. So, like, yes, they wasted our Tera, but, like, it cost them a Flutter Mane for it. We can just Sleep Powder the Dozo right here. I think the right play here is to Sleep Powder Dozo and click Eruption. Because they can't stop both. If they were to go Grass Tera, they're going to take way too much damage from this. Yes, they can Earthquake, but then, like, we just bring out something like Flutter Mane, and then we're probably okay. Let's see if they have Grass Tera. We could even realistically just protect Torkoal. I like that play better, actually. Because if they're Grass, then we just go after Eruption next turn. It's a better play. It's the value of Protect. We can even, like, swap in Lando and get an Intimidate boost if we really wanted to. Sleep Powder. Nice. Oh, they're Goggles. Okay. Hey, look at this. Look at this. So we're going to swap in Flutter main there because it's fairy typing to cover up for that. That's crazy, dude. Goggles is nice, dude. Nice. Who needs Grass Tear when just Goggles Dozo? Solar Blade, big damage. Yep. Order up Blocker Renode. Sun's still up. We still got that speed boost. We can just go for big Moon Blasts and just keep spamming these Solar Blades. Good damage. And they're going to get one hit off. Heavy Slam. Yo, easy peasy lemon squeezy. And so we got to think about what the last move that we want on these guys to use. This is the last turn of Sun, so I don't think Torkoal's right. I think you just go Landorus here. And we can just finish off the Dozo with the Lilligant and then get a free Stomping Tantrum into the Tatsu. If they want to go Protect, next turn we'll just do the same thing. We'll just close combat there and then Stomping Tantrum. So we're still fine. Yep, so Dozo goes down. And then Tatsu takes a lot of damage, couldn't attack that turn, and then basically they can send out basically anything they want. Spirit Tomb is a weird choice. We can go close combat there, plus like a Spirit Tomb, like an attack into the Spirit Tomb. If they want a Trick Room, which is like the only weird thing that they could even do, we just have Torkoal in the back, so it doesn't really matter. Just close combat this guy. Protect. Hey, are you Protect Trick Rooming me? It's the right play. It is the right play, but it won't get you anything. There's the Trick Room. Hey, go nuts, bro. Go nuts. So we don't need to have all these guys on the board. We're just going to Protect here. We're going to try and close combat this guy. They can double into the Lilligant. We're going to Torkoal. We win the game, right? Not that much they can do. Spirit Tomb is a really cool mon, but I'm sure that Spirit Tomb on this team is for like an Imprisoned Trick Room if they wanted to use Flutter or Jolteon correctly. So, not that much they can really do. I'm going to take a sip of my coffee because it's still early. Draco, wow. Dropping the Dracos, huh? Easy peasy. So we just don't want Torkoal to die, right? So don't even need to bring it in. Just go for Stomping Tantrum there. You might as well try and Sleep Powder it. They can't have Goggles on both of them, right? Snarl gets a KO, chunks the Lando a little bit, and you can see how, like, I think that, like, you see how Lando was able to be way more of a bully than, like, an Ursaluna would in this situation. Lando came in and, like, actually dictated play to speed tier above what Tatsu was. So it's basically doing the same thing that your Ursaluna was doing, but now it brings Intimidate. Now it brings like potential checks for Heatran outside of Trick Room and inside of Trick Room. So it's a really, really good change, I would say. Hopefully you like these changes. Hopefully your tournament goes well. I think like maybe putting a Mental Orb on this guy could be really tech, so you could lead it with things like Flutter and not have to have Indeedee on the board as often. That could be really cool. Potentially putting like Leftovers on either of these two could also be very, very nice if you needed to. This set's good, this set's good, this set's good, this set's good. If you want to mess with some of the Lando EVs, you definitely can, but this is just what's comfortable for me. So hopefully you like these changes. If you do like these changes, you know, say thank you in the comments. But if you guys want to submit your own teams for fixing, you know, I do these pretty early in the morning, and there's a lot of teams to work through, but you can still submit your teams on Patreon. Even the lowest tier, the $2 tier, gets access to the team submission post and daily posts. I've been making really cool best of one meme teams. I have like video previews if you want to check out how I play the team live. There's replay reviews up there on Patreon, as well as basically brand new rental codes every single day. So if you want to check out some of that stuff, just think about checking it out. That's all I ask. I'm not saying you have to go do a bunch of stuff, but at least check it out, see if it's something that you like. And yeah, if you have any questions about Patreon, please let me know in the comments on this YouTube video. I'll do my absolute best to help. But yeah, I think that the team that you submitted right here definitely works, but it's an example of like a win more Trick Room team that just like struggles getting the initial Trick Room up. And then when they use things like Ting Lu or like Heatran, you basically can't even win. You're basically locked into like, well, I hope they don't have Heatran. So the changes that we made punish people for using Heatran, punish people for using those Ting Lus, and give ourselves more options outside of Trick Room, which is the key to winning a best of 3 with an open team sheet tournament with a Sunroom team. So hopefully you like these changes, and yeah, thank you so much for watching. Peace out. I'll see you guys next time.